Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kib, otherwise known as Import Jungle, jungler for Team No Names. Kind of just here, just trying to talk about PCL, just how it went in general. You can think of this as like a recap. It's probably what I'm going to call it after I'm done with it. But this is basically unedited, uncut. It's just raw, like just sitting here talking to you guys about it. I'm going to go through everything that happened in PCL, what my experience was like, go through each of the games, talk a little bit about them. I'm not here to analyze the games or really like break down why we did certain things. Might talk about a few of those things in semis and in finals in terms of the drafts, but that's really about all we're. That's really all about all we're going to be talking about here. So let's just start off with how we were coming into the tournament. Coming into the tournament, we were really confident just because of scrim results. Or this we were like very convincing in scrims, so it was with just like everybody we went against. It was like I think going on this patch we lost one game. Like going into scrims, we were incredibly confident coming in, and we felt like really coming in that we were really hot and that people were really scared of us. Honestly, that's at least just how we felt internally. Is that people should be scared of us, and so it kind of get when you have that type of expectation of yourself, it really is hard sometimes. Like it really is really you just put a lot of pressure on yourself because you feel like you should be winning. At least it wasn't the public opinion. I can almost imagine when like To must have felt like just that they have this type of pressure on them in order to perform because they're To. You know, Toronto Esports. They went to the LAN. They did all this stuff, and just I don't know. I can just imagine how it is for them. So, but it was just it was quite a bit of pressure on ourselves, and like the people who knew were knew like a lot of the top end players who were watching our scrims, some of the analysts and stuff. They knew how scrims were going, and we really did look like the team to beat. So there was like this pressure, and it would have been a disappointment if we finished anything other than first. I felt like is what it was. So without further ado, let's just like get into the first game. I have all the games written down, and I'll just kind of go through them one by one. The very first game that we had was against Pizza Stack. This is the team that has Tiram Piculo and Thought, Raelios, Menq, and sadly I don't remember the support, but I remember those four. Pretty decent team, honestly. A lot of people who are like in like between the 17 and 2K elo range on Agora.gg. Pretty decent players. They put up a decent fight. I think they have a lot to look forward to, honestly. And I don't know. I think we kind of just came in. I think all of us were a little bit nervous, a little bit shaky, but we finished it in like 17 minutes. It was a decently competitive game for a little bit, though. So I give it to them. I think they have a lot to look at. Second match was Vladimir's, and Vladimir's was between game two into our quarterfinal match. Like these matches were all very incredibly one-sided, honestly. And against Vladimir's, I think we won the game in about 13 minutes. I don't really remember. Like 13 to 15 minutes, something like that. It was pretty much like a complete whitewash. And just yeah, it was pretty rough for them, I feel like. I do hope that some of these teams do come back though. I hope that they stick with it. I think anybody can become really good at Paragon if you really just apply yourself and if you really put in the time. I think me, Ray, and Milk Drunk are like perfect examples of it, where we came into this game 5 months ago and look where we are now. We just won PCL. Like it's a really great feeling, honestly. I was talking to Ray about it. I was like, just thinking about it, man. 5 months ago, we were just plebs, but we put in the work, we put in the time, we looked over everything we need to look at. We became students of the games, student of the game, and we're doing a lot in game. And like me and Ray had to fill the leadership roles on the team in terms of shot calling and all of this. So you can only imagine like how much you can get done in 5 months if you are really efficient and if you're using your time wisely and if you are just really practicing and being serious about it. So I don't want anybody to get discouraged by like what I might say or all this. I definitely want these people to come back, and I have all the respect for them for coming out here and just showing their play, you know? So mad props to the Vladimirs and just everybody who came. Just keep at it, you know? Just keep at it. But anyways, then we went against Finesse Esports, which is Demonic Trails team. I think they're not even playing together anymore, from what I heard. If they are, same thing as Vladimir's, man. Just keep on playing, man, and just I don't know. Still got some time. 1 second. Okay. Just 1 second, guys. I was not prepared for something. Alright. Alright. Okay, we're good now. So, but Finesse Esports was kind of a same kind of story. Just hope they come back. Hope their players keep on playing. And you can just do anything with time, just like I said. Quarters is a bit weird. Quarters was against Turkish Paragoners, which was a very interesting game. Talked to them, or the quarters were best of 3, and after the first game, one of their members left, and they basically forfeited the second match. And I don't know. It was a bit unfortunate for them, and feels bad, but it is what it is. Nothing really much to say there. Going into the semis, this is where things get interesting. This is where like I'll start talking about our drafts. So the semis, I'm gonna show the draft in a second. This is our first draft against the Stack in game 1, and whenever you play off a second side, we usually just react to the pick. To the ban, and then you just have to react accordingly. And I don't know, when they banned this Gideon, we were a bit surprised, and like we just didn't really know why it happened. Didn't really make any sense to us. And then afterwards, we're like, phase still up, and then we'll be forced into something like a Bellica or something into a Fae, which is a really bad matchup. So we just banned the Fae. We're just like, we're just not going to deal with it. It's just weird. So they first picked the Sev like normal, but then we get Ram Muriel. And at this point, I think we won the draft as soon as this happened. I don't think you can ever ban this Gideon for this reason. Because you give us Ramp Muriel. Muriel's like by far the strongest support. Even if you do get the Zinks in the support role, I think the Muriel is so much better. It has so much more impact, and it also wins the lane really, really hard. So I think I don't think even the rest of this draft matters. Because of these 2 picks, because of the way that the first round went, like I think we instantly won the draft. Was how I thought about it. Their draft was okay. I didn't really understand the Wraith and the comp. I don't think you need it. I think your damage is too low, especially when you have a Muriel and a Rampage. Whereas just like the sheer bulk of the comp is just so much that you need something to actually tear through it. So that's why I didn't really like this Wraith. But besides that, like the draft is basically whatever. So to talk about what happened in this game. I DC'd at about 10 minutes or so for about like 5 or 7 minutes and came back, and I think we won in like 25 minutes. And doesn't really do justice because I don't really know what happened in the time that, because I never really went back and rewatched this game. But from what I understood, Shadon got really, really big on Revenant and basically just like carried the game off of it, which is just well played by him. You know, great mid laner, great player. And I don't know. That was basically that game. So this is the second draft. So loser chooses side or pick, because that's the way that PCL works. Is that one side will choose pick and the other one will choose like pick order. So first or second pick, and the other one will choose sides of Dusk or Dawn. The reason why this is important is because of the disparity in the dual lane, in particular, with Dusk. So Dusk is basically the favorable side in most, because the jungler's safe side is, or the jungler's strong side is on the dual lane, which means that if you get dual lane control, you can start taking control of the Raptors and just things like that. So that's why Dusk is very important, at least in the current metagame. So pretty much what we did was draft just kind of went through. This was just kind of like an on-the-spot ban. We just wanted to ban Faye simply because of the Stack's mid laner Yuso. and we it was just a target ban at that point because we knew that since we had first pick, we had the initiative, and that we had an idea about what we wanted to first pick, and we didn't care if we gave them the Sev or the ramp again, if that makes sense. So we basically just knew what we wanted to pick, and that was about it. And as soon as we got, it was the same thing, but with the second rotation. As soon as they first rounded the Gideon and the Revenant, we instantly won the draft. There's just like nothing to do. Even with this Wraith, like the Wraith isn't necessarily the best pick here, but it doesn't matter just because of how strong this draft is with these 4 picks. We should have never been allowed to get these 4 picks, and as soon as we got them, it was like the game was kind of over. Because the thing about these 4 picks, if you ever go late against this comp, you will instantly lose. There's just too much. There's too much in this. Too much hard crowd control. There's too much control, and just too much damage, too much bulk. Like, there's just too much to come through. Like, especially with a Gideon and a Revenant, these being your 2 cores. These are 2 such low damage cores when it comes down to killing tanks. Like, these 2 will never kill like a Rampage and a Sev unless the game is just way out of your control. Like if we lose early game hard, then we can lose this game. But they basically have a smaller early game advantage in the draft, and that's really about it. So how does this game go? This game actually goes like pretty even, simply because of missteps in individually, like just mechanics and stuff. Like people just weren't hitting stuff, and just kind of created a lot of bad situations for us. But then we started turning around with really well played fights, and we got like an OP like 13 minutes, and then after that OP, we basically just won the game in like the next like 8 minutes or so, because we started getting stuff. We got T2s, and then we just started breaking open the game just like we usually do. So that's really it with the stack. The stack played well in the second game, but I think it was too late. I think they drafted wrong. I think they had to win the first game to ever win the series, because I think when we put them in this position, like the game was just over. It really matter. So this is where we come into TO. And before I start talking about the draft and the games in TO, I just want to talk about like how I felt and all this. So I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that really affected me. Not going to talk about it too much, but I had a lot of stuff going on. So this win, like it meant a lot to me. So I was very nervous. Not because I didn't think that we weren't going to win. I was sure that we were going to win. I was very confident, but I was very nervous to just get up there and just do it, if that makes sense. It's almost like a stage fright sort of thing. Like you practice so much, but just getting up on the stage and doing it is just really rough. So I really felt like I had to win the series, and it's just PCL. Don't get me wrong. It is just an online tournament. It's only in front of 1,000 people, like streamed, but it's still this tournament meant a lot to me, is what I'm saying. Like more than anything, like just this tournament. I'm okay with, like, for instance, not doing well in like the next PCL, because I did this one and it was really important to me in that moment. It still is very important to me. It's a very good win, and I was really happy about it. But I was very nervous going into the games. So let's talk about game 1, because that's the one that needs the most talking about, I think. So game 1, this was our draft. Kind of stays consistent to what we were doing. What most people will talk about is probably this Wukong. That's probably what most people will talk about. I think after the second round we win. Like, I just don't think you ever give this to us. There's no point to take when the Muriel's already taken. There's no point to take the Zinx and the Grim in the same rotation. You might ask why. Zinx loses its flex potential when you pick ADC and or mid in the same rotation. There's just no point to pick this Grim. And if they knew our habits, they knew we probably wouldn't even take the Grim. Like, it's whatever. Like, we take Murdoch like 5th pick, like, or 9th pick. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like this is where they really screwed up. And then this was like, this made even less sense. Like the first 2 rounds didn't really make sense to me personally. I'm sure that they had their own idea in mind, and I'm sure that their idea was good and that it worked for them in practice, but it really didn't make any sense to me. And this Bellica made even less sense on it. The whole draft kind of didn't make sense, but this Bellica also didn't. Like, they should be Gideon here. You might ask, well, what's the difference between Gideon and Bellica? Why does it have to be Gideon? It's simply because of your comp and how it works. You have like pretty low CC, I would say, or just like you don't have any front line or anything. But this Gideon just can keep people in place for about 3.5 seconds, which gives your Wukong time to auto attack. It gives your Grux time to just ult and just hit people. Like, it gives you time just to have these fights. With the Belica, you just have like this pick potential, but why do you have it? Why are you picking over the Gideon? The lane is even... It's worse to play Belica into Fae than it is to play Gideon into Fae, in my knowledge. So in almost every respect, it doesn't really make any sense. And you're not getting any mysterious value out of the drone in this game as well. You don't really have that many... You don't have like a crunch in the game, if that makes sense. Like something that can really be abused by the drone. So I don't really understand why this Belica was ever picked. The Wukong goes into their strategy, so I understand why that's picked. Grim, typical Mikey pick. Zinx, typical Marty pick. Like, so these picks, some of these make sense, but the Belica really doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't really fit. So let's talk about the game and what happened. So game went on like 30 minutes. Maybe a little bit less, like 28 or like 32, somewhere in between there. The game was pretty much always in our tempo. I think, people could dispute that if they want. Like, they had Toronto had some good plays here and there. Yeah, I do agree that there were some times where they had some pretty good plays, but I think everything was following to our beat, like, throughout the game. I still think that we misplayed a few of those fights because a couple of us were nervous. It wasn't just me. I think we misplayed a few of those fights, and that's why. Luckily, we had some really great individual play coming out, especially from Nick Eagle and Shadon. Honestly, their individual performance pretty much carried most of these games, and obviously Ray. Ray is by far the best support in the world, in my opinion. People can dispute that. People can say Marty is. People can say X or Y is. People can say whatever. Ray's the best support in my mind, and I don't know. I think we had some really great individual play that kind of salvaged it when our team play was a bit lacking in this game. So, to talk about how the Wukong went in particular, they tried to 2v1 swap us as well. For instance, they wanted to go off lane again, essentially. So, duo lane went to Orb side, and our duo lane was on Raptor side. And this is where it gets a bit strange with like the strategy. So I understand why you would pick Wukong. Wukong is like it's a pick that can kind of, if you can ever stall, then you can just get towers. And I can understand that. Like, you have like a lot of early pressure from the Belica and the Grux and like this Grim Zinx lanes in order to like offset like the Wukong's weakness in the lane. But the thing I didn't understand is why you would swap the Wukong into the 2v1. I didn't really understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, just to me personally, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure that they had a real valuable reason for doing it, but I just don't understand why this Wukong was put in a 2v1, especially. Because thinking back to when offlane was a thing, like the 1v2, Wukong was one of the weakest laners in the 1v2, so why would you forcibly put him in there and also have your dual lane on the wrong side, or like it on the other side? Doesn't really make any sense to me. Especially into a lane like Muriel Murdoch. Like, you might go like, oh, it doesn't have hard crowd control, so it's fine. It's like, it doesn't matter because of the shields and the damage coming out of the Muriel and the Murdoch. I don't know. I really didn't like the way that they used the Wukong. I would have liked to see Wukong in the jungle at the very least. Or just put the Wukong in the 1v1 and then try and have some strategy around the Wukong in the 1v1. Then it would be fine. But I think just putting in the 2v1 was a really bad idea, and we capitalized. We went for a fast tower push, and then Nick just started getting more farm than Karma. And then with this Wukong being as starved as he was, we just started forcing fights while he was weak. And they could just never really fight us except for around OP, around like 20 minutes in, and they got... Blood got a stealth buff and made like a really huge like 2 or 3 man play in mid lane. I remember that, which really offset the tempo of the game. But for the most part, I feel like the game was in our control, and I feel like the draft is a really big part of it. So kind of gonna close the game there, game 1 there, and now we can move on to game 2. Things I want to say before I get into the draft is that after winning game 1, I felt like I knew we won the series. Simply because if they wanted they would have to choose a side or pick again because they're the loser. And I feel like we have advantages that we can make on both sides of the coin toss. Like, no matter if they win or not. scratch what I said. No matter what they choose, we have things that we can exploit. Is what I mean. Simply because of the way TO plays or played, and yeah. So going into the final draft, we ban the Sev because it's pretty much just a standard ban. It's not like we can't play it. It's just because of the way we draft. We usually ban Sev. And because of Ray's performance last game, they banned the Muriel. Not just because of his performance, but because the hero is very, very strong. But I'm not sure. I think as soon as they ban this and we get the ramp, like I think we kind of know. Like it's not like my ramp is super sick or something like that, but it's just like as soon as we start getting these picks and when we get like this ramp Kwong, we just I don't know. I just knew I knew as soon as we got these picks, I was like I'm gonna be on ramp. Nick's gonna be on Kwong. We got the Murdoch again, and then just like I don't know. I could just feel it at that point because I looked at their draft and just I didn't care that Marty got Zinx. I didn't really care that Undead got Faye, even though those are the two strongest picks that are up for their roles. I didn't care, and then Ray just gets Decker and has like an amazing game, and same with Shadow and Gideon. And this game is the cleanest game we had all tournament. It was very, very dominant, and yeah, I think also I don't know. I look at the comps holistically. I think ours is so much easier to execute than theirs. I think their comp is good and it makes sense and you can play with it, but it's so much of a harder comp to play with because you need like these plays from the Fae or the Zinc stun or something or set you up or like a miracle hook. And you have really strong lanes like Kwong and Crunch is an interesting matchup, which I'm not really going to explain because I'm not a solo lane main. So, but it is a very interesting matchup that has like certain times where Kwong is stronger and certain times where Crunch is stronger. So it's you kind of have a pressure point there at some points. Richter into Rampage is kind of an even matchup, maybe a little bit Richter favored. And you have like some of these exploitable things that TO can do. TO's comp is designed to win lane and then snowball. Like it is like a very, very early game composition that once it gets items, once it gets a lead, like this team becomes very, very oppressive. Like Faye crunch damage is going to be absolutely insane. Same with the Zinc stun, very, very high impact. And if the Revenant ever gets kills with the old bonus gold, then he can really start running over the game. Our comp, however, I think is a lot more well balanced. Has this solid front line, solid lanes everywhere. I don't think any matchup is necessarily a hard losing matchup. Like just a hard counter pick, but I think we do definitely outscale. And the thing is that even though they have the superior early game comp, we actually play the early game better across like across the board. Like everybody got an early game advantage. Dual lane got an early game advantage. Soul lane got one. Mid got one, and I got one as well. And I don't know. Everything just came together in this final game, and we played it super, super clean. We just had times where it's just like we just know two people are recalled, and we just go do Fangtooth, or we just go do something, and then just like everybody was just so on point. Like a lot of our abilities were also just like really well placed, except for me. I think Ray had like the highlight cage. Shadow had a few ults that were really sick. We had that incredible siege as well under the right inhib, and just everything really came together. Like absolutely everything. It was just it was a really great experience overall, and just I don't know. So to kind of just have some last parting words. I don't even know. It was an incredible experience. And I can't wait. I can't wait to play more. Can't wait to play against Think twice. Can't wait to play against TO again. Wonder if they're gonna have any changes or not. But besides that, that's really it. I want to thank you guys for being here with me and just just listening to my perspective of PCL. Honestly, probably not stuff. If you guys watched it closely, probably not anything really, really surprising. Maybe got a little bit of my insight in there, but I'm kind of keeping it a little bit close to my chest. I don't want to show people exactly how we're drafting or like why we pick certain things. You can see it for yourself in the drafts. It's just I'm not going to go too in depth. It's more of just like I just look at it and just go, yeah, this is how I felt. This is how what I was thinking at the time, and just all of this. So yeah, like I said, thank you guys for joining me in this, and if you want to see more stuff like this, just let me know. And yeah, talk to you guys next time.